Hi everybody, it's Couple Indemnity. We are a film podcast about the love of cinema by two very dedicated film fans. I'm Hal, and as ever this week, I'm joined by Izzy.
Hi everyone.
For this week, you chose a movie that I could tell you were a bit unsure about at the time, probably because it's not one of your normal or typical genres. So you picked the very highly acclaimed No Country for Old Men from 2007. Why did you pick this one?
It's one of those films that, well, there were several reasons. It was one of those films that always pops up on Letterboxd 4 when they do the interviews on the red carpet, and it seems to be one of those films that a lot of people name. Second reason is I know we talked about it when we did There Will Be Blood, and I love There Will Be Blood. And this film beat There Will Be Blood. So yeah. I knew that it was I was kind of going in being like, prove it. And then the third was that I'd been having a conversation with some colleagues about the author of the original book, and I haven't read any of his work, so I didn't really know what to expect going in.
Yeah, we did mention it and talk about it a fair bit, talking about the acclaim that There Will Be Blood got, because it was from 2007, and it just happened to be a year when two absolute corkers from Hollywood came out, and they were very much set against each other. And I think a lot of people at the time, and probably since then, have very much put the two movies in the same kind of bracket. But watching this, I think it was very clear that they are very different viewing experiences. I'll just say off the bat, I think this is the best modern movie we've watched this year. When I say modern, I mean 21st century, we can say. I thought it was an absolute corker from the minute one to minute end, and the level of tension.
So you putting it above Sinners?
Tough. Yes, I think I would just. I mean, Sinners is a real new take on the horror genre, and this isn't horror. This is very much thriller, crime, western kind of themes. But all the stuff that I love and I acclaim about Hitchcock films, this film really, really evoked that same kind of emotion, that unbearable tension when you know something's going to happen. Horror can do very much evoke the same emotions and similar emotions, but in a different way. This one, there were so many moments where we were so on edge, and you just watch the whole movie on the edge of the seat.
Yeah.
And it had so many scenes dotted throughout that where it was the same. And you think, is this film ever going to relent? Absolute brilliant choice. And I can't wait to get into it.
Yeah.
Why don't we do that now? We'll play the trailer and we'll be back after this.
Let me ask you something. What's the most you ever lost in a coin toss?
Look, I need to know what I stand to win.
Everything. Just call it friendo.
Llewelyn, what's in the satchel?
It's full of money.
He's just a guy who happened to find that money.
I got a bad feeling, Llewelyn.
It's a mess, ain't it, Sheriff?
If it ain't, it'll do till the mess gets here.
I'm looking for Llewelyn Moss.
You go up to his trailer.
Yes.
Do you want to leave a message?
Yes.
If I don't come back, you tell Mother I love her.
Your mother's dead.
Well, then I'll tell her myself.
Got a loose cannon here.
You think this boy Moss has got any notion of the sorts that are hunting him?
I don't know, he ought to. He's seen the same things I've seen, and it certainly made an impression on me.
Just how dangerous is he?
Compared to what? The bubonic plague?
The crime you see now, it's hard to even take its measure. It's just all-out war.
You can't stop what's coming.
Is this guy supposed to be the ultimate badass?
You don't understand.
Call it.
No Country for Old Men, released in 2007, based on the novel by Cormac McCarthy, starring Javier Bardem, Tommy Lee Jones, and Josh Brolin, directed by Joel and Ethan Coen. Can you give us the synopsis, please?
Violence and mayhem ensue after a hunter stumbles upon the aftermath of a drug deal gone wrong and over $2 million in cash near the Rio Grande.
So we're set in 1980, and the first scene we have is this guy being arrested The first thing we see about him is his extraordinary haircut.
It's this great bowl cut, isn't it?
Yeah.
He looks a bit like Lord Farquaad from Shrek. But yes, Anton Chigurh.
Chigurh. We'll call him Anton for the purposes of the plot.
But he's not really called Anton. I think maybe at like one point in the film.
No, there's very few references to his actual name.
He pulled over by the police, isn't he, in his car?
Yeah.
And what's peculiar about him is he's got this like oxygen tank with the pipe, the cord, whatever it is, up his sleeve, and the police are like, strange behaviour.
When that first policeman reports it on his radio, I think he says it's for
asthma or
emphysema.
Like
Emphysema, I believe.
Right.
I'm assuming that's a complete lie, and because it's not for health purposes at all.
No.
Although he does look very sick. He has a very kind of withdrawn look about him.
Anyway, so he's called in for questioning. He's taken into the police office, and we just get this great shot, don't we, of the policeman who's in the foreground, and then just this looming figure as he stands up and walks towards the camera.
Oh, chilling. Absolutely chilling. And there's a lot of moments where this guy Anton looms in the background, at the back of the camera shot, to do something absolutely fatal. And the moment where he pops up in the background, you know exactly what's about to happen. But the first time, I think, is probably one of the most powerful, because we haven't, as of yet, seen the extent of how evil this guy is.
Yeah, and I think because they go in so violent and so quickly in the film, it really kind of sets the tone, doesn't it?
And this scene is a murder scene. He kills him, but the extent of the violence in this, and witnessing a guy choking on himself as Anton is strangling him with handcuffs, is very disturbing.
Yeah,
we can say, you know. And but also you get a really like slow zoom into Anton's face.
Yeah,
and the intense look on his eyes. He's so
detached, isn't he? I mean, his eyes kind of bulge, but that's just the physical exertion he's using to pull against the throat to this policeman with the handcuffs. But also the fact that the blood is from his own wrists, because it's the handcuffs cutting into his wrists. But he doesn't, in the film, when we see this guy injured, he doesn't experience pain.
No,
in the same way.
No.
He's so detached from his humanity, from his kind of normal senses, that things like being shot and kind of injuring himself doesn't affect him in the same way as it does other normal characters.
But at the same time, it's realistic. He's just a very hardened hitman.
Oh, he's a psychopath.
Yeah, he's a psychopath in this. I mean, he's not like a super bad baddie from a James Bond film, but he is a genuine scary serial killer who he does feel some pain, but it doesn't let him ever bother him at all in any sense. But this is a very disturbing scene. It very much sets the tone for what's to come.
So he steals a car. I don't know how he gets the gas canister back again. Somehow takes that with him. And I think it's very early on as well that we get that scene in the gas station.
Yeah, and I found this just as chilling and uncomfortable, because this movie achieves exactly that. It alternates the tension between all-out violence and just unbearable tension through these intense moments that Anton has with these exterior characters, through these like gas stations and shops and motels in the deep south of America. This particular scene, he walks into this gas station and he's just talking wildly in a personal way to him, and really, really sets this poor man on edge.
But that's because like the process of his conversation doesn't make sense, and this guy is so kind of on edge because he can't understand him.
He's not talking about the actual transaction. He's talking to this guy about, how did you get this place? Like,
yeah, but
you married into this place, didn't you? It's not yours. So he's already like demeaning this guy and putting him down to.
Yeah, there's a real kind of emasculation, isn't there?
Yeah, it's
really?
very much belittling, and yeah, as you say, emasculating him. But
So
then,
it's so psychological.
But then this leads to this repeated thing that we see throughout these confrontations that Anton has, where he demands a coin toss. He whips out a coin and asks the guy to call it, hiding the face of the coin. And every time he does this with these different characters throughout the film, it just completely takes the other character aback. But I think every character he does this to, and the gas station attendant in particular is a great example, immediately understands that this could be their life, that he's suggesting is a coin toss.
Yeah,
it's whether he kills them or not.
What do I stand to win? And he goes, everything.
Exactly.
Everything. But yeah, he's it's a very early insight into the... It's funny, the coin toss, isn't it? Because it feels like everyone he comes into contact with, he will just murder for the sake of it. Like, we see him shooting pigeons, this guy, just for fun. We rarely see him killing women. We don't even see, if we do later in the film, we don't actually see if he does kill the one woman he encounters. And he doesn't kill children, as again we see later in the film.
No, he doesn't seem to have much... I mean, there's not many women in this film, but there's no kind of sexual desire or motivation behind anything he's doing. It's just pure all-out bloodshed. And he's very much after men, and men of power. And that does link to the actual plot line of this, and there is a money motivation behind this. But the coin toss is one of the tensest scenes in the first half of the film, I think, because the gas station owner calls the toss correctly, and then Anton simply just walks out of the shop, doesn't he?
And he says, "You have to keep that quarter. It's your lucky quarter."
Yeah, and he gives him a kind of nodding look as he walks out. Very, very chilling. Now we get this other character played by Josh Brolin. Now he's playing this guy called Llewelyn Moss, who is a retired... Was he a welder or something like that?
Yeah, he was a welder.
He was a manual labourer, wasn't he?
And he had been in Vietnam as well.
Yeah, he's a veteran.
So the first shot we get of him is him hunting deer in the desert, and I think it's an early piece of foreshadowing that we see him miss, or he does get it, but not a killing shot. No. So it runs off injured, and I think that kind of early foregrounding and kind of foreshadowing of this character's ultimate destiny is interesting. And he's walking through the desert. He sees this like 3-legged dog limping through the desert, and he kind of follows it, I think, to a valley, and he looks down and he can see these parked trucks and just dead bodies everywhere.
Very much. This was one of the first scenes I kind of had flashbacks to something like Breaking Bad. And Breaking Bad was, as people know, one of the most successful TV shows in the 21st century. And it started the year after this movie came out. And it's set in very much the same part of the southwest of America, in Albuquerque, that one is. So very near to this. And this kind of dreadful death scene of all of these dead bodies is very much reminiscent to a lot of expositions and scene setups in that. So Llewelyn sees these 3 or 4 jeeps parked up next to each other with all of these dead bodies outside of it. And there's this one great shot where he sees the glass smashed on the windscreen of one jeep, and he kind of walks up to it slowly, not knowing what's going to be inside. And he sees a wounded Mexican guy who can't speak very much because he's severely wounded, and he's begging for water. And Llewelyn also notices that on the back of the truck that there's loads of drugs and a briefcase containing...
Well, the briefcase is actually not at that crime scene, because he ends up walking a little bit further out and he finds a dead body under a tree. And that's where the briefcase is.
That's
so
right,
the briefcase isn't immediately on that
that's a great
scene.
I think this scene is definitely one of the most typical Western setups, I would say. These wide vistas with the beautiful colour showing, and him scanning across the skyline and seeing this body under the tree. He walks over to it, and as you say, finds this briefcase next to him with $2 million. Yeah, and you can immediately seeing his brain working. And
do I leave it? Yeah. And he's like looking round. He obviously knows that he could be watched taking it, so the paranoia really starts there. And we see him. He's also like picked up pistols and things like that, like a really shiny silver pistol. He's kind of, I think I turned to you and said, this guy could make a killing off of just looting from all these dead bodies. Because he takes all of the the weapons as well. He goes back home to his kind of trailer where his wife and him where he lives, and he's like hiding stuff underneath the trailer, and then takes the briefcase inside, and it's clear paranoia starts to settle in very quickly, but also guilt, because he can't sleep at night because I think he's thinking about the guy who was dying in the truck.
Yeah.
So he pours out water into like a carton, and he goes back in the middle of the night to the crime scene to find the guy's been shot through a window because the window's completely shattered.
Yep.
All the drugs are gone, and there are two guys up on the cliff.
Yep.
Who spot him and then chase him. And this scene was one of the early action chase scenes that I could hardly watch, because he's getting chased in the dark, and
then they release the hound.
And then they release the dog. And the only way he jumps into the water, doesn't he? Because it's the only way he can kind of avoid the gunfire, because they're just kind of trying to mow him down. So then they release the dog, and the dog chases him into the water, into the rapids.
And this dog can swim.
And it's one of those like scary kind of bully breed, spiky-eared dogs, huge, like muscly.
Like a pit bull, like a strong, big pit bull, isn't it?
And it comes after him in the water like a shark.
And it's gaining on him throughout the water. Like I can see, like it's a fast swimmer because it's so muscly, this dog.
And then he manages to clamber out onto the side of the river and get the shiny silver pistol out, and he's like trying to load it, and this dog's just galloping after him.
Oh, what a scene! Yeah, and the dog runs up to him, and in the nick of time, he manages to load the gun and shoot the dog.
Yeah,
but that's a terrific moment.
And I think it's at this point he knows he needs to get moving, because they know kind of he has the money. And so he goes back home and he tells his wife that she needs to get on a Greyhound and go back to, where is it, Oregon or somewhere like that, where her mum lives. So we've got these kind of two parallel storylines happening. And then we get the third one, which is Tommy Lee Jones. And I think at that point into the film, we're about half an hour in.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that Tommy Lee Jones in a lot of the like Wikipedia and things has top billing for this film.
Yeah, I think Wikipedia have taken the official lead billing from the movie. So yeah, Tommy Lee Jones does have top billing in the film officially. And we'll talk about that when we talk about him and his career and why that probably was the case. But it does feel odd because Tommy Lee Jones is probably only in every other scene from about this moment. I think it's Josh Brolin really who has the most screen time overall. So
Chigurh is hired to recover the missing money, and at the same time we're then introduced to Tommy Lee Jones as sheriff, county sheriff, on horseback, very kind of Western looking, isn't it? As he kind of approaches the same crime scene we've become very familiar with by this point with his partner. Yeah, and they're trying to deduce what's happened, aren't they? Because they come to understand that actually what's happened is there's been two separate events that have happened there, because the two men that have been killed by Chigurh as they took him to the crime scene, he shoots them.
But who were they? The guys in suits who Anton had killed?
I think they were the other half of the drug deal, weren't they, that had gone wrong.
Right.
So they hired him to try and recover the money that had been stolen.
Yeah. But I think, yeah, you're right. The sheriff and his number two immediately deduce that there's two different things that have happened at two different times.
Because of the age of the bodies, I think.
The age of the bodies is the most clear giveaway. There's a significant death toll for a crime scene. So that it's something they really need to kind of investigate quickly. They know, they're pretty sure and certain that it's a failed drug deal, but as you say, that it's taken across two different events. So at the same time, Llewelyn has left home in the middle of the night and has gone to a motel in Del Rio, and we get a lot of sequences now of no dialogue, and this is more reminiscent to me of Better Call Saul. I think Better Call Saul does master this in kind of visual storytelling so well. How much detail you can pack out. But it does require a lot of constant concentration as to trying to deduce and understand what he's actually trying to do.
I also find myself, I don't do this a lot in films, but these types of films I find myself talking a lot because I'm going, what's he trying to do? Because I'm trying to make sense of and process what he's doing. And sometimes you're like, what an idiot. Like, that's so stupid. But then later, further down the line, you'll understand why he's done it.
So he's in this room that he's purchased for the night in this motel. He's hiding the briefcase in the air duct. I think he knows that he's going to be followed, and they will know that they will somehow get hold of the books and work out which room he has. So he buys a room for the night, but then the next night he actually buys the one that's behind it as well to try and access the same air vent. He's very clever. It doesn't quite make sense to us as an audience when you're watching it, because I think it's something I'd have to watch again to try and properly understand the sequence of events. And because there's so much of what Llewelyn's motivations are that are all part of his thought process, which is an internal thing. Yeah. He's not voicing there's no other characters he's talking to throughout. He's there alone. So he's gone to purchase some new boots from a local shop. And he comes back to the motel and sees... in the taxi. And he's like, just keep driving past the room. Yeah. And he sees the curtains have been moved, which is because, don't you remember, later into the film, there are two men in that room that he has for the night. So somehow they've managed to get into his room. Yeah. We later see Chigurh kill them. Mm-hmm. It's very complex, this part of the film, trying to understand the kind of logic behind the room situation. Yeah, there's a lot going on all at this part of the film, but we immediately deduce that there's a lot going on in these two rooms that we're not seeing. And that is very key to the part of the dread and the sense of suspense. When we are very much aligned with Llewelyn, we're kind of desperate on his side so he can kind of get out of this situation alive. I think at this point, Llewelyn is already in two minds of what to do with the money. He's not fully intent on keeping it and making a full escape. He's already starting to have doubts, I think. I think he's more worried about his own life. Yeah, and I think his wife as well. I think it's funny because part of you's like, why did you take it in the first place? Because it was blood money. And he knew that. And so the paranoia, he's basically seals his fate the minute he takes the money. And I think he knows it. It's just about how long he can get away with it. Yeah. So there's this great sequence when Chigurh is driving past the motel and he has this sensor. Yeah. And at first it took us a few shots of that sensor in the back of the car to understand what it is. And it suddenly became obvious to us that it was a tracking device, and that tracker was linked to one that was in the briefcase with the money that is obviously now in the air duct. Yeah, so he drives past this motel and it starts going off, and there's this great sequence when he drives past the rooms really slowly. Oh, yeah. And the tracker's going beep, 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 he's increasing in speed, and then he goes past it slows, and he reverses, and it goes beep, 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 beep. So he knows it's that room. So he obviously can't get that room because it's already out with Llewelyn. So he gets the room next door. Oh, it's so complicated, this part of the film, but it's so clever and tense because he uses that thing, doesn't he, with the oxygen thing that we saw early on in the film. He uses it a lot. We see him killing people with it to the forehead, which confuses people because there's no exit wound, so it's not a bullet. So it takes the police a long time to figure out what the weapon is that he's using. Yeah. But his most common usage of it is to blow through locks. Yes. So we see that as like a recurring motif. Hasn't he put a silencer on the end of it? So no, that's the gun. Right, I'm getting his weapons mixed up. Yeah, but the oxygen tank weapon is very much prominent in the first half of the film. And it confuses people as well when they see it because they don't immediately have their guard up because they're just confused as to why a guy is carrying around a tank. Oh yeah, that's I think key to a lot of the scenes and the confrontations that Anton gets involved with. Like there's another one, I think a bit later in the film, that's not a spoiler to reveal it now, but I think he supposedly breaks down in the middle of the road, and this local nice farmer stops by and immediately helps him out.
Oh, yeah. That's so he can get the... Oh, no, that's later in the film.
It is
There's
later.
2 times he pulls people over. The first time is when he's pretending to be police because he's stolen a police car. That's very early on in the film. And that's when he shoots him in the head with the oxygen thing. But then there's another part later in the film where he pulls someone... where he pretends that his car's broken down and he manages to swap with this chicken farmer.
Yeah.
He doesn't kill it. Well, we don't see him kill that farmer.
But going back to the air duct and the money in there, am I right that Llewelyn's second room
Backs
onto the other side of the room so that the air duct will be...
It's the same air duct.
Yeah,
But he
link.
can see the briefcase from a different side, and he's gone out and purchased the largest tent he can so he can connect the poles.
Yes.
Again, that's another moment where you're going, what is he doing?
Yes.
And then earlier you're going, why has he put it that far into the air duct? But then he's trying to pull it round the other side so he can grab it. But there's that point where Chigurh has killed the other guys in 138, and the bullets are like coming through, like hitting the air vent because they're hitting the wall. And that moment where Llewelyn kind of freezes, the sensor's going mental because it's and Chigurh is like undoing the air vent, and then the briefcase is gone, but he can see the scratch marks, so he knows it's been there. And that's when Llewelyn runs out and manages to hitchhike with this local guy who tells him off for hitchhiking because it's really dangerous.
Yeah. And actually that scene links to another one of many very interesting, we're not talking about cinematography too much in this film because there's so much tension involved with the actual plot and the performances, but there's some wonderful looking transition shots that are very reminiscent of almost like a David Lean film.
Yeah, and that was and we oversaw the bit where Chigurh actually enters Llewelyn's house, and you've got the great reflection in the TV of him with the window behind him.
That's chilling. Yeah, that's very tense.
And then
to
when
look
the
at.
sheriff comes in 5 minutes later and he has the exact same shot.
That's a great sort of camera setup and just a great idea with natural light.
Yeah.
To do that on the TV reflection.
Don't you just get the feeling of like the heat as well in those scenes?
Oh yeah, just so sweaty and
sweaty and stuffy it is.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the whole of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul was like that. So then.
We have actually had an early scene at this point of a bounty hunter called Carson Wells, who's this kind of like dandy-like cowboy in kind of impeccable suit, cream-coloured suit, played by Woody Harrelson, who has been hired to try and find and kill Chigurh.
Well, that suggests that whoever it is, the FBI or the higher-up police authorities are very aware of Anton.
Yes.
Chigurh, and that they know his history and probably that he's killed a lot of people before and how dangerous he is.
And Carson is very aware of... he seems to know Anton quite well. He knows he's a psychopath. He knows like...
So they've obviously had a lot of time profiling him and all of that.
Yeah.
You know, in the early days of serial killer profiling. So there's an interesting scene where... But I can't remember whereabouts it is in the middle of the movie now. But where Llewelyn... Yes, this is actually after the next scene we're going to talk about. But Llewelyn ends up in hospital, and Woody Harrelson comes in to talk to him, and
with the flowers,
dressed like a cowboy in a suit, and talks to Llewelyn in great detail about the profiling and characteristics of Anton. And we're assuming that this character played by Woody Harrelson has never actually come face to face with Anton, but there's been a great amount of research and tracking and following of him in the last few months, and they know his traits and what he does. And at this point, he knows more about him than Llewelyn does, even though Llewelyn has nearly been killed by him by that point. So, but the scene leading up to that is one of my standouts.
I think it's the best.
Yeah, so
best scene in the film.
Llewelyn had ended up in another motel in
Eagle Pass
in Texas, and this is at night, and he's got into another motel, very simple room setup again. Llewelyn clearly can't sleep because he's nearly had a near-death experience, and he knows that he's being tailed So he, understandably, I think we're on his side, and we can understand that sense of paranoia. And he looks through the briefcase.
But he goes,
in the money.
he goes, there's absolutely no way that they managed to find me in this random motel. So he opens the briefcase. You think probably should have done this a little bit earlier because you don't know really what was under the money.
No.
But he starts fanning through the money and he finds the tracker, and he just goes like shit because I think he knows he's so easy to track. And this is that great Hitchcockian moment where he suddenly hears like footsteps down in the reception area.
Also, he told the receptionist, he bunged him some money, a few coins, and told him to call him in his room if anyone had inquired after Llewelyn.
Yeah.
So he's almost expecting a call, but then he realises that because of the extent of how much of a nutter this guy is, he could have very well killed this receptionist.
So he
could be
calls the
outside.
receptionist, but it just keeps ringing.
The phone keeps ringing. Then he sees the light under the door of clearly feet outside.
And he can hear the footsteps, and then we see the shadow of the feet outside the door. But then they leave. The light goes off. It's so Hitchcockian.
That's unbearable.
I couldn't watch this bit of the film, and then because he's sitting right opposite the door with the gun, and I was just going, he's gonna blow the lock, as we've seen him do so many times with the oxygen, and he's gonna get hit with the lock, which is exactly what happens, which throws him slightly. So then when the door does open, he's kind of off kilter with his gun.
Yeah.
I can't remember. Does he shoot at that point and then he runs out the window, doesn't he?
I think he shoots once at the door. And does he hit him? Does he hit him in the feet or something?
I don't know if that's the moment he hits him.
No, I think you're right. I think he shoots him in a few moments. So Llewelyn, understandably, the only way he can escape this is by jumping out the window, which he does.
And then he goes back into the hotel.
But that's weirdly. That was a bizarre decision and a choice. That is a real choice because he wants to kind of investigate what's happened in the front reception. So he goes back in, sees there's no one around at all.
So then he legs it out the other side.
He briefly looks up the stairs again to see if he's there.
Maybe he's waiting to try and shoot him coming down the stairs.
I think he is. I think he's trying to see if that's a better way of killing this guy. But then that leads to a street chase, which is brilliant. He spots a truck driving down the road and asks to sit in the truck. And immediately, on driving down the road, a bullet flies through the windscreen, and the driver is shot in the back of the head.
Oh no, it's through the neck.
But from way back in the street.
But also, we had to rewatch it because we couldn't tell if it came from behind or in front.
That's what we were initially confused by. I thought immediately it was behind, but you said it was in front.
Well, that's because the camera then pans to in front. And then Llewelyn is forced to go down, and the bullets are coming through the windscreen rather than the back windscreen.
But at one point, he's literally
driving with
his like head under the steering wheel
and pushing the pedal with
his
hand.
And I think at that point, you need to get out of the car because you're a safety risk being in the car driving. You're more likely to get shot, I think. And you need to get out and hide behind things.
Which he does, because he's driving the car towards the oncoming. Once he goes past the point, he ends up driving the car into a parked car, gets out.
This scene reminded me of one of the most chilling scenes in Breaking Bad in a car park, where you get this shock killing attempt that is so unexpected. And this is not unexpected at all because we're in the middle of an unbearably tense, long, extended sequence. But it's very much reminiscent of that in the car. Lots of throwbacks, I think, to Breaking Bad, and this was a good example of it. Llewelyn gets out of the car and can actually see where Anton is behind a set of cars, parked cars, and tries to shoot him there. But we know he's not a great shot at the best of times. But does he? I think he manages to.
How does Llewelyn get shot badly in this section? Oh, I know where it is. It's when he's on the street. It's when he's still on foot before he gets into the car. He's shot.
Yeah.
And he's bleeding really badly in like the side of his abdomen.
It looks like his like ribs he's been shot in, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's like that fleshy bit. but they manage to both get good shots at one another, because Llewelyn gets Chigurh in the thigh. It's a massive wound, isn't it? When we see it later on,
Yeah.
that massive bullet wound.
Yeah.
So Llewelyn looks an absolute state when he manages to get away from this place, and he manages to get to the border of Mexico on foot.
And when he's just got past the border and he's on this bridge, he sees these like young guys, probably like students, who've been drinking, and he asks for their shirt and gives them a bit of money for their shirt.
Like the jacket, yeah.
The shirt jacket, and then asks to take the beer as well.
He manages to throw the briefcase over the fence because he knows that he needs to hide it somewhere, because he's not in a state to be able to carry it across, because he knows he's probably going to pass out. So he chucks it across the bridge. He is honestly the guy, and he's like puking and stuff. Like the fact this guy survives as long as he does is unbelievable. I found it really funny when he's crossing the border into Mexico, and the border patrol guy just looks at him and is like, yeah, whatever. And he's like,
he's half asleep, isn't he?
He's covered in blood.
Yeah.
Manages to get across the border, and the next scene is him waking up on the step of a fountain in Mexico with a mariachi band playing.
That was very good, yeah. And he gives him some blood money. Literally, like covered in like red blood, dried red blood.
They managed to get him into a hospital.
Yeah, and that leads to the scene with Woody Harrelson when he meets him that we mentioned.
Because Woody Harrelson is saying like, look, I'll cut you a deal. If you tell me where the money is, I'll give you a percentage and I will handle it from here. And he says, I'm staying in the hotel opposite. You let me know when you want to do this deal. Woody Harrelson in another scene goes to the border and finds the briefcase, so he knows where it is. And when he returns to the hotel, Chigurh follows him up the stairs.
Unbearable. It's another kind of unexpected appearance of Anton Chigurh in the background of the shot. And he just comes around the corner of the camera shot as Woody Harrelson is walking up the stairs. And this shot reminded me exactly of the very moment that when the sheriff in Psycho walks up the stairs to one of the most unforgettable moments in the film. And I almost had instant throwbacks to that. But Anton walks up the stairs behind him, and Woody Harrelson immediately sees him and asks to go to their room where they can negotiate, or whether
I think
Wells is going to get out of his
knows
life.
there's no negotiating with Anton. I think he knows he's dead.
Woody Harrelson plays this, he's not long for this world, we know that, but he plays it very well because there's a real contrast in his calm demeanour between the scene where he's talking to Llewelyn and Anton. It's chalk and cheese. I mean, Carlson is terrified, but he's not letting it show in his voice and his speech patterns. He's trying to stay calm, but you can tell through his eyes how scared he is.
Yeah, definitely. And then he's like, he's trying to reason with him. So he's clearly desperate, but he knows he's dead and he's shot with a silencer, the gun.
Yeah, and then
very quickly.
After the phone had been ringing,
Anton
makes a call, doesn't he?
Llewelyn who's calling the hotel room.
Yeah, of course.
But Chigurh answers, and Llewelyn goes, "Who is this?" And Anton goes, "You know who this is. I know you're in the hospital across the river. I know where the money is, etc." But we did kind of miss that scene as well, where Chigurh, who's been really badly injured in the thigh, has had to go to a pharmacy in Mexico to try and steal like morphine.
Yeah, that's another extraordinary moment.
But we had to go back, didn't we? Because he has like one of those calling card things with cars where he sets fire to them in a very peculiar way, like from the inside out. He soaks like a bit of his shirt in petrol ball like attached to it. And so it explodes the car, and it's really. And
then when he's walking in the pharmacy, it's almost like the Joker, isn't it? Like Heath Ledger when the thing explodes in the background.
And he doesn't flinch at all.
No, not at all. No, and then he steals the. What is he stealing? Cotton buds.
He's stealing morphine.
Morphine, yeah.
And the bandages and things, because then the next bit, you can tell this guy's been through injuries before, because he's so kind of systematic about, so he like puts plastic down in the room because he's bleeding. It's just blood is just pouring out of his jeans at the bottom of his boot. It's like when he takes the boot off, it just goes everywhere. And it's a very graphic scene, isn't it? Like lots of needles and blood.
Oh yeah.
And he's in the bath.
Yeah, when he's in the bath, yeah, you can tell how badly wounded he is. So he had, obviously, he'd been shot properly by Llewelyn, finally, but clearly not enough.
Because Llewelyn ends up going back to the States. He has to go through border control and use his veteran status to sway the border control.
Yeah, a much more
rigorous questioning.
Yes.
And we see he's still in like his hospital clothes. He's managed to retrieve the briefcase from where he left it. And this border patrol guy takes pity on him because he's a veteran and gets him kind of a lift back into town. He goes to a shop and gets some clothes. And we see him leaving the shop and passing a motel pool where this woman kind of shouts at him to come and have a beer with him. And this is the last scene we ever see of Llewelyn.
Yeah.
Alive. And I think it's such an interesting choice from the Coen brothers here to not have the scene where Llewelyn is killed play out on screen. Because at the same time, Carla Jean, Llewelyn's wife, is travelling to meet him to get the money to leave the country with it. Carla Jean has also developed, throughout the film, quite a close relationship with the sheriff, so Tommy Lee Jones's character. She clearly trusts him. He's trying to get information about where Llewelyn might be to try and protect him. She eventually calls him and she says, just look out, like, please try and protect him. Because clearly she's very concerned about him at this point and thinks he needs help. So she tells the sheriff where he is and says he's in a motel in El Paso. So everyone is then heading to that motel.
Right.
And it becomes like that central location, doesn't it? Because this is where the main character kind of shifts to the sheriff. Because when Llewelyn is killed, the sheriff turns up at this motel to try and intercept and help him. But he's too late because Llewelyn's already been murdered. Carla Jean gets there, screams, bursts into tears.
Yeah, and it's a very thought-provoking, sort of calm, introspective performance from Tommy Lee Jones, because this character is very kind of calculating. He's very...
Well, I think he's riddled with guilt because I think he feels that he was there too late, and it's why he retires.
Yeah, as I said, he's very calculating, but he's also very cautious, and he is very thoughtful and methodical in his thinking. It's very impactful on his investigation that when he realises that he is too late once Llewelyn has been killed, and you've got another bloodbath on his hands, and then he has to inform Carla Jean by that point, because they'd already, as you say, struck up a kind of close relationship in that sense of that she entrusted him with this information.
Yeah, and thought he was going to kind of protect him and keep him safe.
Yeah.
He does end up going back to the motel late at night, am I right? To look at the crime scene. And we see Chigurh. We don't know where he is, but in shadow with the gun, with the silencer on it. And that is a very tense scene as well, because we see the sheriff go into the room, turning on all the lights, looking at the crime scene with the blood on the floor. But we don't know where Chigurh is.
I was confused because when he walks in at night, you see the shadow, and I thought that was Anton's shadow. So I thought Anton was right there, and we're about to get another standoff. The camera shoots somewhere else, then goes back, and then it's clearly...
But nothing comes from it.
It's the sheriff's shadow.
Yeah, and nothing comes from it.
Well, he sits in the room and is thinking about where Anton could be.
And we know he's right there because we've seen another shot of him in shadow with the gun with the silencer on it. But there's nothing that comes from it. Yeah,
well, it's very cat and mouse, as the earlier scenes with Llewelyn and Anton had been.
I think after that point, a little bit of time passes because Cara is it Carla Jean?
Carla Jean, yeah.
Her mum dies, and we see her at the funeral. And then we also know that the sheriff retires, and he's clearly very bored in retirement. And we see Carla Jean when she's returning from her mother's funeral. She gets home, and she finds Chigurh waiting for her in the bedroom. She knows because the window's open.
Yeah, she must think, on a day like this, of all people I didn't want to meet, it's you.
Yeah, but she knows immediately.
How does she know it's him? I wasn't sure.
She said, "You're really straight." I knew it was you because of the strange way you're just sat there waiting for me.
Yeah, I guess it's his.
She goes like, "You're crazy."
His chilling demeanor and just the way he just looks at the other characters is just such a giveaway that he is a psychopath.
And he says to her, "I have to, because I made a promise to your husband," because they're on the phone call in Mexico. He'd said, like, you could give me the money and I'll kill you, or you don't give me the money and I'll go hunt down your wife. And because Llewelyn doesn't give him the money, Chigurh takes that as your wife's life then is also forfeit. So he's made this promise, but he does offer her a way out, which is the coin toss compromise. But we don't actually see the result in that because she's refusing to kind of play with him. She refuses to play ball. Even
more resolutely than the original shop cashier had. Because the cashier was more just confused by why Anton would ask something like that. But I think Carla Jean instantly knows that...
She said, no, it's not the coin that decides, it's you.
She's not going to give away to his games and to fall for that. It's entirely in your hands. You need to let me go.
And we don't see the result of that. I mean, I think the suggestion is that he does kill her because when he walks out of the house, we see him kind of wiping his shoes.
Yeah, and I think it's a great choice to not show it because I think it might have been a bit excessive to show more bloodshed with this female character because it would just be pandemonium. It's good to leave it with a slight question mark because we're not sure, that's for sure. But I think the insinuation is that there's a long camera shot far back across the street and Anton is wiping his shoes, implying that he had stepped in blood. So I think it was a good decision from the directors to not show that, I think. And then he's driving down the street in the local neighbourhood and sees these teenage boys on their bikes, doesn't he?
Behind him. I mean, you said that you think that shows that he's a bit paranoid at that point.
He's looking around a lot more shiftily all of a sudden, and I thought on the first watch that he looks more paranoid than he has at any moment up till now.
But it's just interesting when you think why he didn't kill the sheriff earlier on in when he saw him in the motel. So clearly he feels like he's being watched at this point and he's being chased. And there is just one of those. It's not an entirely unique concept, is it? The surprise car accident. Because he gets completely T-boned by this other car that clearly runs a red light, and we never see who was in that car.
No, very interesting. That as one of the, I think this is the second to last scene in the movie. But Anton is severely wounded, but he does get out of the car.
Oh,
when it absolutely batters into the car.
Arm's snapped, isn't it? And there's bones
hanging out of his arm.
And the teenagers who come over to help him, they're like, sir, there's bone sticking out of your arm. Are you okay? And he, as always, Anton is completely emotionally detached, and he's just give me how much. I'll give you money for your shirt.
As a throwback to the earlier scene with Llewelyn.
Yes,
same thing. Yeah.
And they give him his shirt, and he makes a sling out of it, and he says, "I was never here," and then he walks off. And that's the last shot we have of Anton.
But he's talking to the teenagers, or if we want to refer to them as children, in a much more kind of human, compassionate way, or even we can just say normal way, than he does to the adults we've seen up until that point.
Yeah, I don't think it's compassion because they're kids. I think it's more based on the fact that he is vulnerable. He can't. It's not like he can wield a gun, can he, with his arm like that? So I think it's a moment of vulnerability and kind of weakness from him in why he suddenly isn't acting like a downright psychopath to these kids. So
that's the last we see of Anton Chigurh. And then the final scene final two scenes of the movie are very interesting, I think, because we're back focusing on the sheriff and the impact this has made on his life, this case. He visits this old man in the middle of the desert, who halfway through the scene we understand that it's his brother, and he lives in, really kind of squalid conditions with all these cats roaming around. It looks horrible, the place. But the kind of direction of the dialogue suddenly becomes quite deep, doesn't it? They're talking a lot about their ancestors and their family, about the choices
about some uncle and
their uncles had made in their life.
But he's talking about why he's retiring and how he feels like he's been kind of outmatched by Anton, and that the recent violence and everything is just, he's like almost too old for it.
But it's interesting though, because on the lead up to the finale of the film, because it's remarkably and contrastingly slow paced compared to everything.
Heavy dialogue.
Yeah, and much deeper dialogue as a contrast to everything we'd seen up until this point in this movie.
Yeah.
Of like unbearable tension, very fast paced, and all of that. And the final scene is another kind of slow burning, heavily weighted on dialogue scene where it's the sheriff and his wife at the breakfast table one morning.
You could try and psychoanalyze these dreams that he's talking about, but again, it's a very. I think when the film ended, we were just like, "Oh, what a strange place to finish this incredibly violent, action-packed film."
I wouldn't say it was incongruous. I think it was quite welcome, probably, because I was almost a bit exhausted by the end.
I know,
with the amount of tension
I think
that we had.
That's kind of the point, isn't it? Like, clearly we're meant to feel like he does, which he's just so exhausted by the violence and the chase and it all. But I think he also feels like something he tells his brother, I think, is that his brother tells him that you can't avoid your fate and things like that. So I don't know if the suggestion is that the sheriff is going to continue to be hunted and haunted by Anton. And maybe Anton just needs to kind of heal his wounds and then they'll be back at it again. But yeah, it's a really interesting final scene choice where he's sharing these kind of dreams about his father and the campfire and things like that.
That was deep. But I think what the insinuation behind what the brother's saying is that because he's saying he can't escape the fate, I assume that he's implying that he should continue with what his passion is and either see the case out or continue in the police force.
I think he's almost trying to convince him to go back to the police. It's strange.
It's a very contemplative ending for the final sort of 5 or 6 minutes. But I think I might get something more from that ending on a second time watch.
Yeah.
Because I certainly can't wait to watch this again, because up until that point it had been relentless in the amount of suspense and tension we'd had. Well, let's talk a bit about the production. So in terms of major differences from the novel that was 2 years prior, supposedly the book places a lot more emphasis on the sheriff, including extensive narration and backstory that the film, for the most part, it largely trims a lot of that. So this film adaptation is a lot more focused on this wider ensemble of different characters. The Coen brothers also made subtle visual changes, particularly in the gas station scene, using bright daylight and imagery to reinforce the themes of truth, fate, and ignorance. The production on the film started in May 2006, and filming began in the New Mexico cities of Santa Fe, Albuquerque, and Las Vegas, with other scenes shot around the West Texas towns of Sanderson and Marfa. Production also coincided with Paul Thomas Anderson's There'll Be Blood, as we mentioned earlier, and that was being made directly at the same time. And the Coen brothers even had to scrap one whole day of filming when the oil accident scene from There Will Be Blood was being shot there nearby, and there was just so much smoke in the air that it was made it impossible for the cameras to keep rolling on this movie.
Wow.
The role of Llewelyn was originally offered to Heath Ledger, but he turned it down at the time to spend more time with his newborn daughter. Javier Bardem nearly had to withdraw from the role due to his own issues with scheduling, and Mark Strong was put on standby to take over the role before Bardem was eventually able to commit to it. Mark Strong would have been very different, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
But it would have been interesting, but I think we'll talk about Javier Bardem's performance in a minute. The film became the biggest box office hit for the Coen brothers until it was surpassed by True Grit in 2010. So the award section is quite interesting to mention this week. So No Country for Old Men was considered one of the best films in 2007. And as we said earlier, it's since been widely lauded as one of the greatest films of the 21st century to date. The film had 4 nominations at the Golden Globes, winning for Best Screenplay and Best Supporting Actor for Javier Bardem. He also won the same award at the BAFTAs, which also awarded the film for Best Director and Best Cinematography for Roger Deakins, who was a very respected British cinematographer. At the Oscars, No Country for Old Men was nominated, but did not win in cinematography, film editing, sound editing, or sound mixing. However, the movie did claim 4 big awards that night. Best Director for the Coen brothers, Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Supporting Actor for Bardem, and it claimed the Golden Prize of the Best Picture that evening. The other movies that were nominated for Best Picture that night were There'll Be Blood, Atonement, Juno, and Michael Clayton, which are all 4 very different movies.
Very different. I mean, I love Atonement. Could not be more different, though.
Yeah, Atonement, wildly different. Much more like period classic, isn't it? And, unbelievably British.
Yes.
Michael Clayton is a decent film.
I've never seen it.
Directed by Sidney Pollack and with George Clooney. That was all right, but it's not on the level of this. For me, this is deserved. To date, it is the last of 4 westerns to win the Best Picture, following Cimarron in 1931, Dances with Wolves in 1990, and Unforgiven in 1992. So this is the most recent.
Yeah. Oh, Power of the Dog didn't win Best Film then? Oh, I think it got direction, because I think that was the second woman to ever win Best Director, was for Power of the Dog.
Yeah, it didn't win Best Picture. It won the Best Film at the BAFTA.
Right.
And I think Jane Campion did win Best Director as well.
Yeah, because she was the second ever female director to win after Catherine Bigelow for... The Hurt Locker?
The Hurt Locker. Some great Oscar knowledge there. Let's talk about the cast. Tommy Lee Jones as the sheriff, Ed Bell. What do we think?
It was, I mean, I don't think I've seen any other than is it JFK?
Yeah, JFK is the one, and from my notes, it's the only film we've ever watched with him together, but that was before Couple Indemnity, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But, a really big, high-profile actor who's been going since the 80s, but he's been in a lot of big blockbusters. Not many that I'm particularly a big fan of.
I think it's a good performance. It's not my standout role for this film, though.
No. I think we'll save that for the next one. But just focusing on him, he really comes into it more in the second half, doesn't he?
Yeah. On
a more regular basis. And those final shots of him really sum his kind of very introspective and contemplative nature very well. And that's what the Coen brothers were going for, clearly. And that's the nature of this character that was more focused on in the novel. Then, all in all, I think Tommy Lee Jones was probably a very good casting choice for this, because it's all in his eyes. He's quite a haunted man in this.
Yeah.
And I probably would have liked to see more screen time with him, to be fair. But
I'd be interested to know what those additional scenes were in the book, to see if they... Because I think this is a film that could have been longer, actually, than it was.
It could have been longer, yeah. I don't necessarily think it would have made it any better, but it could have definitely been longer, and it could have been eked out a bit more. But we may see him again if we ever do The Coal Miner's Daughter in the early 80s with Sissy Spacek, and The Fugitive is on my list as well with Harrison Ford,
right?
Which is probably one of the best early 90s thrillers out there. Javier Bardem as Anton.
Oh my goodness. I think this is the scariest... I mean, you made comparisons when we were watching it to the serial killer in...
Strangers on a Train.
No, I was going to say Zodiac.
No, Zodiac's not what I think of in terms of the actual serial killer performance. It's more kind of on that level of like those terrifying villains from film history. But an obvious one would be Anthony Hopkins to compare to.
Oh, this is way better than Anthony Hopkins in Silence of the Lambs.
I have huge respect for Hopkins, but for me that's a very overrated kind of serial killer performance, and I don't know why it gets so much traction it does. But this is absolutely chilling.
This is way more chilling than Strangers on a Train. Because that guy was kind of like talked a lot more, so you understood a lot more of his motivation was out of like obsession with the perfect crime, whereas this guy, like, his motivations are so he doesn't have motivations. He just kills for the sake of killing.
Well, Robert Walker's performance is a murderous blackmailer, and I think that's a bit different to a psychopathic serial killer in one way. But I think in terms of the intensity, that's the one I could immediately go to. But you're right, this is way scarier overall.
Yeah.
This is really, really uncomfortable to watch. Probably more so uncomfortable in the scenes where he's not doing the killing.
Mm.
You know, like these one-on-one conversations are so much more creepy.
Yeah.
And the way people are reacting to him, thinking through their eyes, and their reactions are like, "This guy's mad." Brilliant performance. If people aren't into like crime thrillers or anything like that, I would say just watch it for Bardem's performance. For me, not an actor I'm very familiar with, but a very respected Spanish actor who's appeared in Latino cinema in the 90s. Married, of course, to Penelope Cruz. Difficult to know what we'll see him again, if anything. I don't know if you have seen him in any other movies.
Well, we've seen him play the more obvious villain type in Skyfall.
Yeah.
But again, that's very like mwahaha, stroking my
typical
white
Bond
cat.
villain type thing. This is on another level to that, I think we can say.
But again, there's something so kind of obvious and predictable about those kind of tropes. You know that James Bond will eventually, overcome them because of the good versus bad nature of that film.
Yeah, I don't want to take away anything from the Bond franchise, but Bardem's performance in Skyfall was not, even for me, up there with the top Bond villains. But this was something very different for me, and it's a haunting performance. And it really gets you thinking about some of those scenes, doesn't it? With the coin toss and some of these conversations. But other films that are possible, ones that we may cover in future, is Collateral, the Tom Cruise film. Maybe it's not on my personal list. He was in the Woody Allen film Vicky Cristina Barcelona with Penelope Cruz as well. Mm-hmm. So if we ever get to that, but I don't think we could extol the virtues of this performance anymore, could we?
No.
Josh Brolin as Llewelyn.
This was a really, really pleasant surprise for me because I'm not aware of. I mean, I've seen Dune, but I don't remember him in it, and I would have seen him in some of the Marvel stuff he's done. But like, he's not an actor that I kind of think a lot about, or
no, not at all.
Yeah. But oh my god, was he amazing in this film?
Yeah. For me, maybe it's a bit unfortunate because I'm not a big fan of that period, but he's not been in many films up until now that I've particularly loved. A lot of very standard, mediocre, high-budget Hollywood fare from the 90s onwards. But he did start in The Goonies in the 80s. That was his kind of teen launching pad role.
Yeah.
But I think the best films or most highly acclaimed movies that we may do in future are films like Milk with Sean Penn and American Gangster, maybe, from the 2000s. But in the last few years, he's done a lot of high budget Marvel stuff, as you said, like Dune.
Yeah, he's done Deadpool and the Avengers and stuff like that.
Yeah, which is unfortunate because I don't want to take away anything from his acting ability, but this was brilliant. That building sense of paranoia he has was really well played from his part.
He was in a I think it might be a romance with Kate Winslet called Labor Day in 2013.
Yeah.
So possibly might watch that at some point.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know a lot about it, but that might be a possible one.
Milk is definitely really highly rated, and that nearly won the Best Picture.
I've seen him in Hail Caesar as well, but
I think Milk would appeal to you as well.
Yeah.
So that is more of a possibility. And American Gangster is very highly rated with Denzel Washington. Next on the list is Woody Harrelson as Carson.
Well, I was very familiar with Woody Harrelson because I grew up with the Hunger Games.
Yeah, and he's only in about 3 scenes in this. Did we count? 3 or 4 at the most.
He's like an assassin. He's hired to kill.
Right.
Which is why he's very familiar with Anton because they're kind of running in the same circles. They're hired to kill people and get dirty jobs done.
Yeah. So you're most familiar with him as the Hunger Games, and only that.
I know that he was in some action films and stuff around the same time, but I mean, it's Hunger Games that I know him from. He's
a very sort of high-profile Hollywood actor who's been around a long time, but I'm looking at his filmography. I'm not sure if I've even seen any of his movies.
Oh, you know what he was also? He was in Now You See Me, which is the magician franchise. Yeah,
which doesn't look that great. But he started his role as a bartender in Cheers, which went on for many, many years in the 80s. And then he went on to more acclaimed films like The People versus Larry Flint and The Thin Red Line in the 90s, which was highly rated. But it was unfortunate that that came out at the same time as Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah.
It kind of stole its thunder. The other more recent film that's very acclaimed is Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, which we probably should cover as well.
And he's also in Triangle of Sadness, which was that was another kind of popular one that came out a couple of years ago.
And that won the Palme d'Or, I believe. Yeah.
He played Lyndon B. Johnson as well in a biopic, I think.
Okay.
He was in Anger Management, Friends with Benefits.
Oh, no.
He just, I mean, his filmography just goes on and on and on.
We're not doing Friends with Benefits. That is a terrible film.
No, I'm not saying he is. But I'm just reading out some of his like massive films he's done.
Well, last up in the cast is Kelly MacDonald as Carla. A very kind of unexpected role for her, playing this the girlfriend of Llewelyn, Carla Jean. Great accent, I would say. Very convincing Texas accent, given that she's Scottish, and I think she's from Glasgow. So all the props to her for that. Well, I really rate her. You know, I'm more familiar with her from TV work, but she's been in some big films. I mean, TV-wise, Boardwalk Empire and Line of Duty, I think, is her longest standing show she's done. But I think she will appear on the podcast again because her movie debut was Trainspotting in the mid-90s, which was obviously a local film for her. So understandable that she was cast for that. But Gosford Park, you know, we probably should cover that because that is a really entertaining murder mystery, and that achieves everything that Knives Out does not do.
Yeah.
Anna Karenina and Goodbye Christopher Robin, which I watched last year. She plays the nanny in that. Very sweet performance. And she was in Operation Mincemeat a few years ago.
You're missing what I know her from.
Is it something like Nanny McPhee or something?
It is Nanny McPhee.
Yeah.
She plays Evangeline.
Yeah, but I really rate Kelly MacDonald. I do think she's a very good actress, and she was great in every scene in this movie. We should talk lastly about the Coen brothers. So it's our first movie by them. Very high-profile filmmaking duo, and probably one of the only duos out there now in like contemporary Hollywood after like the days of Powell and Pressburger. Emerged in the 80s and directed some very highly acclaimed movies of the 90s, like Fargo, The Big Lebowski, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? But remarkably, the only one I've seen is Barton Fink with John Turturro, which I wasn't particularly struck on. But Fargo and The Big Lebowski are on the podcast list, aren't they?
Yes. I'll just correct you slightly where you said that they're like the last duo working in film, because you obviously have the Wachowskis as well, who did like The Matrix and V for Vendetta, Cloud Atlas, who I believe are still working.
Yeah, okay. Well, just looking at the Coen brothers films, I think we will do, as I said, Fargo and The Big Lebowski. Maybe you'll be more likely to pick them sooner than I will.
Big Lebowski is definitely on my list.
They've done a lot of work with Frances McDermott, who is, a great actress, and she was one of the leads in Fargo.
Yeah.
So I think Fargo is more appealing to me from what it seems to be about. But two of their early films in the 80s were more sort of neo-noir crime films. And one is on the list called Blood Simple. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I think we'll definitely be coming across the Coen brothers again. But I think most people tend to rate this or The Big Lebowski as their most respected movie.
Yeah.
So, all right, what did you give it out of 5?
I just thought this was an outstanding film in all kind of ways, really, with the kind of unexpected twists, shifting character, kind of foci, bloody murders. I can't recall a more violent film than I've watched in a while. And I just think that Javier Bardem as this kind of psychopathic villain is just kind of unmatched, really. So sinister, so terrifying, the like detached, unemotional quality of his character. And I think some of the best chase sequences I've seen in a very long time, like the dog in the river. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a very entertaining film. I think it would take a rewatch, because there are certain points that are a bit confusing or felt not unfinished.
It's the amount of packed detail that's packed into it, isn't it?
Yeah, I think maybe knowing what's coming would actually help you kind of understand some of the motivations of the characters maybe a bit more. I gave it 4.75.
Wow. Well, me and you were very aligned on this. I'm glad we are, because I feel like it evoked a lot of emotions, and I could feel the tension from you as we were watching it together.
I could hardly watch some of the motel scenes and the hotel scene.
Yeah, but I've heard other people say this, and in terms of viewing, it doesn't have to be your favourite genre, but if any movie evokes genuine instinctive emotions from you, then it's having the kind of effect the filmmakers had wanted.
I think any film that creates that physical response, whether that's crying or edge of the seat, like there were times where I had to like get closer to the screen to try and see things, and I think if a film can get you to physically respond to it,
and that's why I think people shouldn't belittle horror films, because if they are an art form in themselves when they're done well. Unfortunately, there's more bad horror films than there are good, but it's one of those things. But this is a thriller that ticks every kind of box, and it really, really works, and it's one of the best 21st century thrillers I've ever seen. It is pure Hitchcockian in those emotions it's going for, and that level of dreaded suspense, particularly in the motel scenes. One of the best serial killer performances, if not the best, I would argue, from Javier Bardem. Unbelievable, absolutely chilling, uncomfortable, terrifying and creepy, all in equal amounts. And there's some really, truly standout scenes that I can't wait to rewatch, that are both exciting and tense. And I do feel like it really did inspire Breaking Bad. A lot of those, even the scene where Llewelyn was killed, and you don't actually see that. So the time quickly shifts to probably an hour later. That is very reminiscent of various expositions and forms of writing in Breaking Bad. So I've given it 4.75, just as you have. So it's very close to being a 5-star movie. Great choice. Why don't we take a quick break, and we'll be back with our next choice. Right, it's for our next episode. We will be doing another episode with Scott, and I believe this was your choice for him.
Yeah.
And we are doing a classic that we've watched together already a few years ago before the podcast, and it is a British classic, isn't it? What are we watching, Iz?
I'm so excited to see this film again. We are doing A Matter of Life and Death, the Pound Pressburger film, which will be like the 3rd time I think I've seen it, and God knows how many times Scott's seen this film.
Yeah, I can't wait to watch this. This will be probably on my 3rd as well, but it's many people's favourite film of all time and favourite British film. It is remarkable in how it really goes into the kind of fantasy element, but through pure cinematic innovativeness.
I just think what it achieves in that film, in terms of its visual effects, what it achieves is just
and it's very emotional
ridiculous.
in some parts as well, and it is really a film about life in many aspects. But very importantly also, it's our first Powell and Pressburger movie, and I am a big advocate of their films, and this was right in the middle of their peak in the mid-40s, under the production label that they were doing under the Archers. And if you don't know anything about Powell and Pressburger, I would recommend you listen to Martin Scorsese talk about how good they are. And the documentary that he did as well, which is unbelievable. So I can't wait to watch Matter of Life and Death, and also talk about some of the actors, what we'll be talking about for the first time, like David Niven.
I love David Niven.
Yeah, and Kim Hunter, and Roger Livesey. Okay, I'm really looking forward to that. Well, you can find us on all good podcast platforms, including Apple and Spotify, and do get in touch with us if you wish. You can email us on coupleindemnity@gmail.com. And on the socials, we are simply at Couple Indemnity on X, Blue Sky. So, join us next week for a little bit of her, and a little bit of me, and some Powell and Pressburger.
And a little bit of Scott.
See you then, guys.
Bye, guys.